You're listening to Freight Famous, presented by Rose Rocket, bringing you the people that make trucking move. From behind the scenes into the limelight. Here's your host, Justin Bailie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Freight Famous, the Rose Rocket podcast spotlighting the brightest minds in the supply chain industry. At Rose Rocket, we're dedicated to making the supply chain smarter and more connected. Our software helps over 100,000 people, from startups to large enterprises, streamline operations and stay ahead. We're passionate about innovation and expertise, which is why we bring top industry leaders to share their insights with you on Freight Famous. Learn more at roserocket.com. I'm your host, Justin Bailie, co-founder at Rose Rocket. Today, I'm thrilled to have Lars Ward, VP of Sales and Strategic Partnerships at Cheema Freight Lines, joining us to chat about mostly AI. I was actually going to take this conversation in various different ways. I wanted to hear about how trucking's going. But Lars and I, honestly, we just kind of nerded out on AI. And I think we did a nice job of just staying high enough level that it's accessible for most. So we didn't get super deep in it. I'm not that technical anyway. But I thought it was an awesome conversation. Listen to some of the tools that we're both using, not just in work, but mostly actually in our lives even. And hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy doing it. Welcome, Lars.
Hey, thank you, Justin. Appreciate the invitation.
Okay, so I think today's topic around AI, and again, we can talk about other things, is relevant. I think a lot of people are excited. I think they're freaked out. Everything in between. So, really want to dive into that part, specifically how it's being thought about from. I think the asset side is super interesting that you're working in a large trucking company. Because I think, when I think about AI in transportation, I'm going to think about obviously technology companies, but maybe brokerages, how they would be thinking about it a little bit more. So it's just, I'm curious on your thoughts, but, maybe first, can you just talk about how you ended up sitting here talking with me today?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the topic, by the way. All things AI, it's the trendy, buzzy sort of thing, right? In sales and tech and life in general. So it's going to be a super fun conversation. But for everybody listening, my name is Lars Ward. I am the VP of Sales and Strategic Partnerships at Cheema Freight Lines. We're an asset-based truckload company. We have 500 trucks, 2,000 trailers, and a growing brokerage that covers the entire U.S. Before joining Cheema earlier this year, I spent most of my career at large asset truckers like Knight Swift and a startup freight brokerage called Freightvana. So deep experience in the space, always focused on customer service, sales, and technology. So hey, to bring it back to AI a little bit, right? There is so much conversation going on, so much chatter, and there's so many different use cases and applications. I think most of our attention is spent around dreaming about the future 10, 20, 30 years down the road about what AI might look like. And you either have this sort of like utopian vision of everything's great and easy. Okay, probably not true. Or it's dystopian and this is Skynet, be scared, be worried, right? Okay, probably not true as well. We're trying to make heads and tails of what the technology is and what it isn't. Early on, what I've seen, the truth is most of it right now is just really, really bad automation for outreach. And that's a shame. That's not how AI should be used. Right now, it is spam at scale, and that sucks. But there's so many ways that AI is going to come in, and think about the practical use cases early on to better automate parts of the sales process, part of the onboarding process, the prospecting, process, all of the things that are kind of the quintessential non-revenue generating activities where we need improvement, where we need better automation tools. And then there's going to be some other elements that unlock a ton of creativity. And those are the things that short term, I'm super excited about.
So I think one thing I think we should do, and it's occurred to me just as you were mentioning this, is I think it's easy for folks that sit where you and I do, who are in this all day, every day, to kind of jump to like step 3 on AI. So I think maybe it would be helpful for the listeners if we kind of just gave a broad, I think one of the maybe things that is a little abstract to those maybe who don't work in technology is like, what even is AI? Is it like a magic wand that you like tap a computer with and it starts to do stuff? Is it software? Like, if it is, how does it work inside of software? So maybe if we just like step back, and I know neither you or I are computer scientists. We don't need to get into the nuts and bolts, but maybe it'd be helpful just to kind of have a layman's kind of version of what is the manifestation of AI. And I do want to mention something around ChatGPT, which I think most of us know, and if we don't, look it up, use it. It's kind of mind blowing. But my son, who is 16, does get a little upset with me. He says he's joking, but I can tell because I know him obviously very well that he's not. That he gets upset when I don't say please and thank you because he says when they come for you, like when they come, they're not coming for me because I'm polite. So they're coming for you. So be polite. So anyway, maybe just as a like real like high level, what is AI actually in terms of it's like explain it to me a little bit.
Yeah, this conversation could be the whole podcast, and it would be super fun.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right? Because and I say that as a good thing, right? Because we are trying to make heads and tails of exactly what AI is, what it isn't. Right now, by and large, it is a marketing sticker that you put on everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's even been jokes, for a lot of public companies, there's the tracker of how many times do you say AI, right? Just to sort of incite excitement in the marketplace. But okay, what is it? It is an emerging technology that we should be super excited about. Why? Because some of the applications are prompt generated bots that, based on a certain kind of prompt, will give a different kind of response based on a large language model of possible combinations of outputs. And we don't totally understand what will come out, one way or the other. Rather, it is a large model that is predictive based on the prompting. So that's super exciting. And there's a large range of ways that could be used. It's text-based, it's voice, it can create images, videos. And then there's going to be another evolution, some of this available, some of it not available yet, but instead of prompt-based AI tools, there'll be agent-based AI tools. And agents are going to be a little bit different because prompt-based bots are really just, kind of input-output responses. And then agents are going to have some level of autonomy to make decisions without a prompt. And that's where I think a lot of folks are getting excited about AI, but really don't understand what the applications are. Within that kind of high-level framework, there's lots of different tools, lots of different applications, and lots of different companies kind of running and chasing on how to go and insert AI into the business process.
Yeah. And so what we're talking about here, and I actually like that the breakdown, because you'll hear it if you've been like paying moderate attention. We kind of went initially from large language models, which is, again, I'm going to oversimplify this, and this is not meant to be, don't tell your friends this is a scientific fact, but the idea is you will ask a question to a tool on the internet as if you were typing a text message, and it will scour all things on the internet to pull that question and answer it back to you in a matter of seconds, really. And so it is the entire World Wide Web at your fingertips, and it learns. So it gets smarter the more information it pulls, the more data it consumes, the smarter it gets. It's like a human in that way. It starts as a toddler and it will eventually advance into an adult. So that might be your LLM, and that's kind of your chat GPT, and that's where things start. What Lars is mentioning, the agent model is now a sort of specific use case trained model that is very, very good, because it's not saying, hey, be a Trivial Pursuit master, because that's really what ChatGPT is. It'd be incredible at
Right.
It knows a little bit of everything. It's the guy in the bar who, like, where did you come from, right? Like, you don't have a high school education, but you know everything in Trivial Pursuit. It's kind of that. But the agents are doctors. They're specific. They're trained. They're perfect in their field, relatively speaking. So that, I think, is a super interesting use case, and that is the advancement. And I agree. I'm very interested and very excited about the agents, because it takes it from this, man, this is cool. Like, it takes it from, whoa, this is really cool. Create me a song or make me a piece of art. That I'm only really doing it because it's like I'm fascinated by the output, but I don't really have any utility for it. It's like I'm not going to hang the art. Like, maybe I would, but probably not. But where the agent is, it is doing a job very specific to maybe something that only really, really well, but you can have it trained to do it as well, or maybe in the future better, and kind of be your sidekick. I love the term agent because I think that describes it really well. It's your agent. It helps you. And so when you think about whether it be LLMs, which I think are more common today, and then turning into agents, what are some of the things that you're seeing in the sales side of the business where, these things are being used today, and how is that affecting maybe both the buyer and the seller?
So the first application we're really seeing in mass is automation of emails, right? Now, the problem is AI is not, in my opinion, being used well. And, we have talked about this a little bit, but some of the emails and some of the templates that are coming out, they feel like they've been, created by a bot. And that's going to create a terrible experience for buyers. It doesn't add value to a business. And I think there are sales leaders who believe that this is a numbers game. And if I can send out more messages, law of large numbers, I'll win because of that. But the problem with that is AI and the tools that we could be using it for should allow us to do a lot of that work very similarly, but with much, much higher impact. I should be able to prospect better. I should be able to go through discovery better. I should be able to create more relevant, pertinent messages. And I should be able to create better automation and follow-up flows that just totally change what the current process looks like. And so from a sales standpoint, I think those are some of the applications that we should be really, really excited about. There's another piece, and we're seeing some of this, but a lot less, and especially less in transportation and the freight space, but is using more creative marketing. You can now utilize AI to create incredible marketing, images and videos and ways to tell your story that I think still, have that human function at its core, but now it's empowered by these AI tools that, if you were to go and create some marketing videos, well, this is several thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. If you want to go create marketing images, this is probably full-time in-house work, right? But now you can kind of create some of these images and videos to complement the sales and the marketing functions. Your emails should be better. They should be more relevant. They should be tailored to who you're reaching out to. They should be used to coach. Sorry, I'm just going on, but
no, do it.
Really how calls are made, how objections are handled. They should be used to help empower the customer service team, because as soon as you go and sell anything in transportation, there's a long tail of how do you execute that over a long period of time and keep your customers happy, right? And so those are the ways that I think we will see AI come about in a meaningful way over the next 2 years. So far, what I've seen is it's a lot more automation on email, and that's because we're just trying to figure out how to use it. It's a powerful tool, but the problem is there's still a lot of human application that comes into how these prompts are really being created and generated and what the specific intentions are for it. So I don't think we've seen a lot of good use cases for it yet, but there's a wide set of applications that are going to be very, very meaningful for sales in the next 2 years.
And so there's this kind of there's the where we are and where we want to be. And so where we are today, we started with there's just a lot of quick, we could automate this. So I think if I unpack that a little bit, it's we're kind of taking the first inning of the software today and trying to apply it as quickly as we can to just create more scale and being a little bit maybe sloppy perhaps in how we're applying these technologies, because in earlier we had spoke prior to the show about chatbots and as an example, and I had mentioned that I've kind of got an allergic reaction to chatbots because they just give you the sense that the company is more interested in profitability than customer service, and it kind of it's a bit, those things to me are actually divorced. I think they kind of equal each other. The better service, the better profitability, and the long tail of value is money and all those things. And so I just feel like so they really turn me off, and it feels like that is almost what you're saying is kind of happening in the sales process right now. It's like my barbershop started using an AI chatbot to book appointments, and it's like, that's so offensive, man. Like, you're like one of the last places of like absolute human interaction. You go, like, it's a very like classic urban barbershop where you go in there and it's like, it's all the things you think of when you think about like a hipster barbershop in Toronto. It is all of those things.
Right,
but then they started bringing in a chatbot, and I was like, man, does this ever feel off? Does this ever this just doesn't land at all. And they've since abandoned it, thank goodness. But I think that's my point around that. And so is that maybe a good like sort of analog around how that's being used in sales? It's just not natural enough, and it just actually ends up being discredited towards the process.
We're automating the wrong things,
right?
And it's a total shame, because especially the closer you get to the revenue decisions, automating those pieces is going to have a huge detrimental impact. At least I think, right? Like the experience at the barbershop. All right, well, take that in the B2C application. All right, well, take that in the business to business application. You still have an individual buyer who is making these decisions, but now you've automated really to them what the face of that company is, right? Sales and customer service. So if you remove the human element from it, you better have a product that stands on its own 2 feet, because that's not going to be a great, enjoyable process, right? Now, there are ways to use it. When you had mentioned your barbershop, I was figuring, all right, this is some sort of text bot, and it says, hey, Bobby the barber, I'm the scheduling robot. You want to come in on Tuesday? It looks like you typically come in around 5. Does that time work for you? Right? That's great. But if it's anything else, right, I think we've lost the plot here. What it should do is it should empower us to sell better and to serve customers better. And as soon as that's not true, you're right. We're using it the wrong way. It's the wrong applications. But I think the reason we're seeing that is we're looking for the low-hanging fruit, It feels like something we can automate. It feels like an easy area to save money. And it really shouldn't be to optimize your OpEx or the profitability by reducing headcount or expanding their, sort of scope. Really, it should be to enhance the customer process and to enhance the selling process.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love the model of an enhancement versus a reduction, right? And then so it's to make you better. It's to make the organization better. It's to make operations smoother. It's to allow salespeople in this instance to do better pre-sales analysis on the account, to just do better go-to-market functions. But as you know, as I coined earlier, and I've been saying this to a lot of people around a lot of businesses, it's about really don't make AI your customer's problem. Make this part of the internal process, internal operational excellence. And that is really, I think, and I agree with that. I think I'm totally missing that. So where do you think then, if you think of your organization, how do you think about using AI, maybe today? So you obviously have a good sense of what's broken. Are you using it today? I mean, if you are, like, where are you finding are actually good usable tools right now?
Yeah, so this is such a great question, because now we're getting into, all right, there's some crap out there, but what makes sense and what works. So start at the beginning of any good sales cycle, the prospecting phase. For the longest time, I would really just use Google. I'd go through any public updates, news about an organization. I would use LinkedIn, kind of find the specific individuals I want to talk to, and kind of build out that organizational structure and start making my case, right? I still do all of those things, but now I've got this awesome, chatbot that I've trained that will go through a couple of steps and sequences of things that I look for. So, you can use AI to very quickly understand a company's financials better. You can understand their industry, their sector better. You can understand some of the pressures they have. Ultimately, get a dossier on how to sell to this customer, because you've trained. Now, there's a lot of work to do this, but you've trained about to say, here's what we do, here's why we're successful at it, here's some of our light customers. Now, here's the prospect I'm going after. Or even better, ask the AI, what are some other companies that we should be working with, right? And it'll go through, it'll do the scraping, and it does a really, really good job of that if you train the bot well. Okay, so now I'm approaching customers with way more intelligence, way more information that should hopefully be more relevant to them. I'm going to use AI to help automate some of the email functions. I don't like the voice for most bots, and so you still have to go through that and do the work to make the message relevant and thoughtful. And the other piece I really like, and I'm pretty early at it, but I think because of all the noise from AI, video outreach, using images and using video are going to be more and more important, and AI tools will help to do that better. So what's funny is it should accelerate, at least for me, and what I think really good selling looks like. It should automate what personalization looks like, where instead of going, just straight, kind of mass messaging or individual one-to-one messaging, I can personalize more quickly, more in a more predictable and relevant fashion. And then on the backside of it, any sales leader knows this, so much of the work is done in being persistent and consistent and following up over a long period of time, right? And you can build out some kind of automations, and there's a lot of good CRM tools for that, right? But if you add in AI as a layer on top of or in between that, again, the process there should be enhanced for the seller and for the buyer. So that's what I've been doing. A lot of that just looks like, again, the sort of the high level prospecting, a lot of image creation, and a lot of the follow up, right? When to follow up, how and why. Those are things that AI has been helping me with.
Yeah, there's something interesting. It feels like this is sort of a general tech binary thing where you kind of have like this, it feels like these, and I'm gonna dispel this, I think, in a second. So don't fear if you find yourself in the one camp as I say this, but there's kind of this haves and have not, that thing that's starting to happen where it's like, I have all the AI, like I do everything, right? And then people are like, oh shit, like I've got nothing. I don't even know how ChatGPT works, and I'm stuck in the dark ages. And meanwhile, this is like 18 months ago, we were all in the same place, right? And now it's like these people are like way out ahead, and they've got all the AI and or AIs or whatever they would call it. And so it's like there's this feeling of like, oh man, I'm being left behind. And I think it's a constant dilemma amongst people anytime around tech. If you're anywhere and around technology or not, even for that matter, I think you know there's always somebody who has someone more than you, and it's even tech wise, you always feel inferior to those who know more about these things. But I will give you an example of, I think, AI for AI's sake. So last week I came across a product, don't even remember how, and I forget what it's called. I think it was like, it was downloaded, 1 trillion times and it's changing the world. I'm like, well, I probably should download it too. And so I downloaded it, and it's basically a product that makes you type in text. So you would say, I'd say, hi, Lars, nice to meet you today. And it would be a robot voice that would talk back, but also a, what would you call this? Like an actual person, and you could pick the race. There was about 1,000 different templates of different people. So, and you could match so I picked an Asian looking woman, and I took a Singaporean accent, and it took me like 30 seconds, maybe like 10 minutes to make this video. And you could add clips in the back, and you could do all this stuff. And I could make this very cool presentation of what looked like, it's an avatar, I guess, of an avatar talking to you and using expression. It looked a little robot-y, but it was crazy. I was like, wow, this is really out there, and kind of deep fake stuff kind of freaks you out. But I ended up having to buy it because I had to get a certain amount of credits to actually publish the video. So I'm sitting here with this $150 charge on my credit card, and after I make this little video with no real use, I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this? Like, what would I actually do with this product? Like, what besides I wanted to like fake someone out and what am I actually going to do with this? So I think there is a lot of, there is a question in here, and the question is like, there's sort of AI for AI's sake, it seems like, to a degree. Like, how do you prevent yourself or your team from like going the opposite way? Not like, I don't know anything about this stuff, to I'm using AI for like everything. And it's like, and now it's like you've so over-rotated that it's actually useless now. Like, how do you kind of like, how do you thread the needle there?
I totally get where you're going. And you're right. There's almost this sort of bro culture around AI where it's like, all right, we're doing it for the sake of it. And then there's a lot of folks who are just cheering it on, right? Well, it's exciting and it's fun and we should be exploring it. But then there's another camp where it seems like they're totally just against AI for no good reason other than it's new, maybe a little bit scary, right? The truth is always going to live in the middle, right? I think the challenge is because it's new, you do have to play around with it. You do have to make some mistakes, right? This is true of, I suppose, like any new technology, right? And I think what is exciting about every salesperson, especially, should be totally excited about it, is the unlock on creativity, right?
Yep.
We're not, there's not many tools that can unlock creativity the same way that AI can. So I'm using it almost as a way to empower and enable all the creative outreach I'm doing, all the marketing work I'm doing, and then of course, the automation stuff. But there's been great automation tools for years. For years, absolutely, right? But I think it's interesting to see how these camps are sort of working or evolving. I think a part of it is this might just be the natural, kind of tech cycle of how things come about. But no, it's just such a fascinating point. Yeah, there's this AI for the sake of AI. Just do it because it's new and it's cool and it's shiny. And then you end up with kind of like a crap product that you don't do anything with. You got to send me this video if you're.
I will. I'll send it to you after, because it is again, it's nuts, but it's like, I see no use case for it unless maybe like a training video in like a company with like 35,000 people, and you could just have the same person speak it. But why can't you record a human doing it? Because you have to do the same, and it doesn't matter. It's kind of, I guess it's kind of cool because you can get like professional video production. It's nuts. You can pick the backgrounds. Like, it looks strikingly real, and it's hilariously easy to build. I do want to ask, maybe just on that note.
It reminds me. It reminds me, just sort of an anecdote, but I think it's good to use something to anchor it, right? I have an uncle who is a pro chess player who's very prominent in the 80s and 90s. And one of the things that was very interesting is in the late 90s, he was playing against the first sort of, now it wasn't really artificial intelligence, it was just complex algorithmic, sort of math, right? But Intel's Deep Blue, when they were playing chess, they were beating some of the world's, greatest, sort of chess masters, right? What was interesting is everyone thought like, oh, this is doom and gloom for the sport of chess because computers are objectively better, right? Well, that ended up not being true at all. If anything, the sport has had sort of a renaissance and explosion in popularity and interest. And, these tools now help train, the current, sort of best chess pros, right? And they're getting better and better and better. It's a funny sort of, side application to all things tech, but I've had deep conversations with my uncle about it, and he loves it. He loves the technology. He's like, yeah, computers have been better than us for 25 years at this, and the sport is so much better for it, right? And so I think there's a lot of truth to what the future of AI could be. Totally kind of a side note there, but at first it was kind of doing it for the sake of doing it, and then there was a concern around what the future of it would look like, but it ended up being just a massive positive. I think the same will be true for AI tools.
I actually quite love that analogy, and I think that's a perfect way, because there isn't actually a lot of applications that I think I would understand or many would understand that have been in flight for the better part of 25 years, where you can actually draw a time-honored path. You can say, this is what happens over a period of time, because it's so new right now. Our predictions are more or less conjecture at this point. I believe this might happen because of where my biases live and operate in my world, but we don't really know. Where I think there are ways to know to a degree when you look at something like that. So I think that's an awesome actually analogy, and I'm happy you shared. I did want to ask practically, like in your life, maybe not even in work, like where is AI showing up for you? If it is at all, maybe it's not. Like, are you using tools? Are you using anything at all right now?
Okay, so in my life, I've got two funny applications, right? You talked about your son wanting to be polite to the robot.
Yeah.
My daughter is in the same camp. So I use ChatGPT to tell bedtime stories. It's a great dad hack. This daughter wants to be in it. Her younger sister's in it. And hey, here's how long I want the story to be. And that's just a fun application. Why? Because it's creative. And a lot of it is really just to introduce my younger kids, right, to what that technology might be. So that's fun. But for me, one of the cool applications is my bot is a dietitian. They are a motivator. They've got great workouts for me. And so instead of using maybe some other apps, I'm saying, hey, like what's a good workout for today? All right, what's a good creative, recipe or diet? And that's been a lot of fun. It's been motivating. It's mostly just a way to mess around and play around with the technology in a way that isn't work related.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be more of this sort of like personal assistant sort of application. That's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe it's just paying your bills, scheduling your vacations, giving you good ideas on, I don't know, all the fun things in life to do, right? So yeah, it's just been fun for the kids and fun on a personal level.
Yeah, the agent I'm looking for right now is I'm about to go through a move. So I've got to move like all my services over to like another house. I would love to like type in can you get my services, move like all categorically services I have sent over to the other house. Like I've got multiple hours of phone calls with telecom companies, and it's just, I've been procrastinating it for 2 weeks, and it's going to probably be too late by the time I do it because I can't stand the idea of doing this. Actually, I did want to mention a product while we're just talking about personal ones, only because I'm so impressed with it. And I just came across it a few days ago. It's called Rosebud, and it's a voice journaling app. And I've never done this before. You can type if you want, but it's much better on your phone. And you talk to it, and then what it'll do is it'll follow up with questions based on so it'll ask you a question like, what are 3 things that happened today that helped? What were 3 great things that happened today in your life, or 1 maybe? And so you say the one thing, and then it clicks on the thing. It's like, I went in the hot tub with my daughter, and we had a good like one-on-one conversation. Why does having that one-on-one conversation, what does that mean to you? What are the feelings that gives? And you can keep saying like, dig deeper or finish, dig deeper or finish. And you dig deeper. It just keeps like drilling down. And then you'd like finish it for the day. You're like, that feels pretty good. And then the next, you can ask it to prompt you to remember. So at like 7 a.m., send me a reminder to start again. And then it kicks off with the conversation from yesterday. Grab some insights from it. It'll be like, so yesterday you were mentioning this. How are you feeling about this today? It's like, it is really sticky and it's really killer. And it's also very intelligent. Like the questions and the insights, I was like, huh. Like I've spent a lot of time in therapy and read a lot of personal development books, and so I get the shtick. And as I'm reading these things, I'm like, yeah, no, these are on. Like this is they're going the right way with this. They're asking the right kind of questions. It's not hallucinating. It's not tripping up. It even will ask at the end. It'll say, these are all the people that you mentioned. Like who? It asks you to tag them. Like who is this? Is this your daughter? Is this your wife? Anyway. I could go on forever, but I'm very very new, and I do tend to like go into things and then fade off of things. So who knows, a week from now I may have forgotten it, but right now it's a pretty powerful tool. So I want to share it with you and share it with others too, because I think good products need to be talked about. It's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great product, right? And so there's some of these things that are just purely fun and wonderful and enrich our life, right? Like, I mean, I'm trying to halfway train a personal trainer, which has been great. But I'm sure that if there isn't already, there's got to be an app that would do it, 100 times better. Well, now if you can, sort of have this like voice sort of component and app that is, kind of digging into your life, and then you're tagging your family members. I don't know what it spits out or gives back to you, but what I imagine is you could go back and reflect on a week, a month, a year, and have something that would be pretty meaningful and pretty special. And that's something that I haven't heard about from an AI perspective. That's awesome.
Imagine being able to, as you say in the personal trainer side of things, you think about like personal wellness. We were way off topic, but this is great. So if you think about like combining those products, right? You think about like, because now the full insight, right? Because right now, like I have a personal trainer, and when I go see them, they have no idea what my therapist is seeing. They don't know, and so and vice versa. But imagine you can combine these sort of these insights. You get a really interesting holistic view of like, the trainer's like, why aren't you showing up all the time? And and it's like, I don't know, because I'm depressed and I hate myself and I don't actually want to show up, but I don't know how to articulate that because I'm not my therapist, so you can kind of like, you could actually probably unlock a bunch of your motivations and would say, I think you should have this workout today because I know what drives you based on your sort of mental, I don't know, I'm kind of nerding out here, but you could really like, I think, get pretty deep in your personal wellness journey with a combination of multi-agents, consolidated here. So there you go. Yeah.
I'm totally tracked with it, right? It's like, hey, like imagine if you get the notification in the morning. It's like, hey, listen, I need to kick your butt today.
Yeah.
On that run.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you know what? Have a low key morning. Drink your coffee slow, and just get back on it. Tomorrow's going to be the day where you hit it, or whatever that might look like.
Oh, I love that.
Putting all these other systems that would never otherwise talk to each other, and putting that right, in one place, like that's going to be all the power of it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love this. I hope I'm like, this isn't out there. We're building this thing because that's incredible.
This app right now.
I know. I love this idea of this consolidate, because it's an interesting concept of. And now, okay, we'll try and tie it back to work, but it is an interesting concept of taking these disparate places that all inform the kind of the final outcome, right? So even going back to business and taking your marketing insights and your things you learn in the field and your firmographic information, like, all the different things we're doing, but generally, even though they're, maybe you do some kind of reconciliation of the data, whether it's through like a meeting or whether it's through like spreadsheets, but like having sort of deep contextual knowledge across multiple silos and be able to consolidate that in a smart way it's incredibly powerful. So maybe using the application I just said, maybe people kind of get, oh, I see why that would be important, but you can take that to business and actually do the same kinds of things where you can cross departments completely. Where in trucking you think about, you could take your, sales will be completely empowered to sell the best freight into that network because you'll understand in real time sort of where we need load balancing, what operates perfectly. And then they're just like, they're just talking together because right now that's the therapist and the trainer and they kind of know, but they don't really know.
The idea of using AI tools to make some of these business planning decisions of incredibly complex sets of sort of variables right now that we're not really very good at putting together and then making the right decision is something I'm deeply fascinated by. And I'll tell you a very real world practical example of one way it's being used. So in the Netherlands, they have a series of dams that protect the Port of Rotterdam, right? And based on certain conditions, there is a computer that will make the decision whether or not to close or open those waterways. Closing it is an incredibly expensive decision, and I know I wouldn't, and most people wouldn't want to have to be the person to push the button and make the decision to lose tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in lost productivity, right? Well, that's just one real world example where a computer might be better able to make a decision like that. Okay, well, think about planning and think about all the complications in any mode of transportation. If you can put all that into a system, and the system might tell you, well, you should increase your deadhead or you should lower your rate, and here's why. And make a decision that tracks something over a long period of time, takes in the customer value and the relationship, and then just gives you a better answer. What an awesome product that might be delivered, right, to everyone in the space because of some of these tools.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist yet, but I don't know, if we were to look down a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, there's no way that that's not going to be an incredibly important part of what we're doing.
Yeah, 100%. And I love, and I've always loved that because I think within trucking, I think that is such like the missing component. It's such an expensive business in terms of like margin and like, every mistake is so, it's the room for error, the margin for error is so small. And I think, but the information gaps are so wide. And so by closing those information gaps, you could really, really create, I think, like those gaps are almost proportionally related to that margin. Like as you squeeze those information gaps down, you probably push your margin gaps wider. And I think those are like the big things that are blocking. It's these silos in the business. And like a business like yours, like that's a perfect example of a size where things really start to break, you know, in a business like that. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just the reality of a growing business, not just trucking, it's all businesses. But again, trucking is just, it seems very on most businesses I know, it can be disproportionately penalized for breakage and mistakes just because, again, that thin margin, right? And so I think there's a lot to be gained in asset-based specific, to closing some of those gaps. And I love the way you just articulate that. That's exactly it. Like understanding at a holistic level, a data-driven level from all the different sources of data from, to your point, like how quick do they pay? How long do we wait? Just all the different like things that maybe are not always brought into the equation when deciding on how are we going to bid for this, or do we want to keep this customer or grow this customer? All those, again, these things can be made in these silos with imperfect information, and the idea that could be much more strategic. This brings me to this idea, and this is very anti-capitalism. I appreciate this, and this will never happen, but and I've said this multiple times on the podcast, but it makes me think this, for some reason, is driving this thought. So I sit in my living room at times and I look out my window, and I will see, a FedEx and a UPS truck. FedEx truck shows up, delivers something across the street. UPS shows up, delivers something to my house. And I'm like, if in a very, like, could we not just share load sheets and say, you take this area of the city today, we take this area of the city today, probably comes out in the wash relatively even. I know it's hilarious and we can't do it, but it's like, it just brings me this idea that is there a world, is there a path where we could just be more, because in that model, you make more money. I get it. You give the customer up and you don't want them seeing it on but could we detach ourselves from it? They actually don't care. Honestly, guys, sorry. They don't care whose truck is delivering it. As long as it gets there and you can track it, then we're good. And so I just can't help but wonder, like, if there isn't a future where we just see more, again, maybe it's your own network. It's, but it's still that I just feel that there's a lot of room for improvement, I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree with you. There's this funny feeling I have all the time, and it's the same feeling, but with big trucks. Is that truck full, or is it, heading in the other direction empty? And the truck that's heading on the other side of the road, is it full or is it empty? And maybe they're just ships passing in the night.
Yeah.
And it could have been optimized so much better, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Optimization is one of those things that's going to radically change, and it should. And if it does, okay, well, here's the things that are going to be better. Truckers are going to be more profitable. Shippers should enjoy some level of cost savings, right? And drivers should have a much better job. Okay, well, if any one of those things is true, AI should be super exciting for what happens in transportation, right?
That's right.
But there's so much data out there. We don't know what to do with it, and that is one of probably the better applications of AI short term. And if you're a seller, right, like bring it back to sales for a moment, getting to sell products and businesses that are empowered by AI, well, that sounds super exciting, right? So I think there's something there in the future that's going to be very dynamic.
Yeah, I think like you, in that I'm excited for the future of AI. I think about I just don't worry, everybody. It's going to be okay. And I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but I heard something recently that said something to the effect of like 50 years ago, 80% of the jobs we have today didn't exist. And that will be true in the future too. But the point is, new jobs will exist. And so, yes, the job you are having right now and you're worried about it, there's probably a chance in 50 years, which honestly, you're probably not working anyway, but just say you are, it's not here. But some other job will be. That will be, that'll be equally valuable and doing equally. So we as a human race we're very good at surviving and adapting. And so I think we will continue to do so. And I think if all things being equal, I think AI is going to be an incredible invention. And again, there's a bunch of great memes out there about people, you kind of read these sentences about it's going to destroy the world and take over and things will never be the same. And then, underneath it's like, said the public about the bicycle in like 1899, right? Like there's all like every time new technology gets like delivered, people freak out. And I think we are freaking out, probably a little bit here, but it's a lot and it's coming and it's coming fast.
It's comforting to know that every technology, Yeah, like that folks have always had this sort of like worry
Yeah.
about the things that disrupt,
Yeah.
right? What the status quo was. And I'll give you an example that I think should give us a lot of comfort because it's very recent. And a lot of us remember thinking this was going to totally change the global supply chain. Okay. 3D printing. Do
Oh,
you
yeah.
remember what? I mean, 6, 7, 8 years ago, where folks were like, you're going to have a 3D printer in your living room and you're never going to leave the house, and CPG companies are doomed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that was not the case, and that's okay. That's good, right? Um, and hey, I'm still kind of excited about what 3D printing might be in the future, but no doom and gloom.
I think a lot of technologies start this way. It's they come out early. The sort of the real modernists jump on the stuff quick, create a, it's something to say. It's newsworthy because it's scary, right? Anything that's scary is going to make the news, right? So it's like, this risks your job and your life. Well, therefore, this is going to sell, quote unquote papers. So the 3D was going to do that. And I think like most technologies, that got overhyped early, and then it kind of goes away for 5 to 25 years and then pops up much more utility based down into the future. The internet was like this, right? The internet forever was nothing but like a place where you'd go and look at a recipe or chat on ICP, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden it got really big and really good. And I think blockchain is similar. I think blockchain was the same thing. Like, this was going to change everything and we weren't going to have currencies. And look, honestly, I actually do believe that's true. I just don't think it's probably in the next 20 years. But all of a sudden that technology, like even, sorry, what are the things called? Like with Bored Ape clubs, NFTs, like these were like all the things. But to me, like, but the reality is NFT technology to me, I think is still the most powerful technology. The utilization of NFTs are going to be remarkable. We just looked at them as art, but they are going to be our ID. They're going to be our, like, I think NFTs personally, I think are as big as, you're going to hear this. I think it's as big as the internet. I think that is how big NFTs are actually going to be. But but not as art. That's not how they're going to be utilized. That was just a utility way to get into the field. Exactly. Just like 3D printing was like, making like homemade guns for like to smuggle into jails, right? It was like, this is what actually became of it. It becomes these like hacked versions of things. And AI is probably similar, but I'm going to ask you this, but do you feel AI has more, like, it doesn't feel like it's going to go back into the closet like the other products? Like, I feel like it's kind of here to stay, but maybe that's me being naive.
I don't know. So, and I wrestle with this thought because we just went through all these examples, right? Where it didn't really change the system itself. For me personally, I do think AI will change the system. I think that this is sort of the Internet 2.0, and it's on an order of scale that is as large as the Internet or as smartphones. So if that's true, because I don't like wearables and all the other technologies. Yes, they have a use case and it'll be very dynamic, but maybe that plays out over a longer period of time. Think about how fast AI has developed over the last couple of years for the public-facing applications. That would make me pretty bullish on the next 5 to 10 years that these tools get way, way better, right? And if they get a lot better, the ways in which we're using them, we're probably not dreaming right now, right? I still think it's going to be a net positive. I think it's going to be good for businesses, good for the transportation sector, good for our individual personal lives, right? Yeah, I'm super excited about the technology, and I think one of the things that should be encouraging to everybody is just how early we are here, right? There's land to go and grab. Like, there's opportunity with this technology that maybe didn't exist quite the same way with NFTs or blockchain or 3D printing. AI is going to have so many different use cases. There are so many low barriers of entry. So many companies are racing to create these tools and put them into our hands that. Yeah, I think it's going to be very dynamic. It's kind of one of those things, you don't want to get into the business of predicting the future, right?
Well, unfortunately, as a tech startup, I kind of already signed up for that. But yeah, that is that is part of it. That is part of it. Yeah, exactly. So I think, look, man, is there any kind of, what would you say to our listeners who are running, maybe it could be bigger or smaller businesses, specifically in the go-to-market side of their business, brokerage, trucking companies? How should they be, what can they do to get their feet wet in terms of AI? What are the best use cases for them where they don't get, totally side railed by building the wrong stuff or thinking about it the wrong way? Or what's some advice that you would offer them if they want to start?
If they want to be really honest about it, right? You need to start by putting pen to paper and really understanding your entire sales process. You have to define it, you have to understand it. And as soon as you do that, I think the areas in which AI can support your sales function and your sales organization will become very apparent, right? If you just want to go and buy the flashy tool or do the cool marketing thing, okay, play around, and you'll have the same video that you're going to send me after this pod, right? Because you don't just want to do it for the sake of doing it. But early on, I think where teams will be successful, define your process, look for those opportunities that can be automated. Okay, that'll be the first thing. Then the second thing I think is creating a different engine entirely for your prospecting. AI is an incredible tool at putting different pieces of data together and presenting it in a usable way. And so I think you can automate the features of your process that don't work well or lend themselves well to automation. And I think you should create a different prospecting engine entirely. With that prospecting engine, you should be more successful at building up a really good pipeline. Those would be the two areas where I think it's really, really practical.
Okay. I think that's good advice. And I think it's nice because it's distilled, it's not overkill. And I think if you listen to that, it's like anything else. You have to understand your business. You have to understand your process. You have to understand your ICP, the stuff you'll hear over and over again, that, these products, no product ever, I assure you, will ever be a solve for lack of continuity, lack of information on your part. You have to have all the pieces and have to have them well understood. And then, as Lars is suggesting, use AI as a way to augment some of the processes today in areas that are just repetitive and AI is quite good at, that isn't customer facing, ideally. That is going to be something that's going to help your internal team just do their job a little bit better. And those are the best use cases for today. Lars, I'm going to send you the video after. I'll probably make you something cheeky and send it over. And this was really, really great, man. I appreciate you being with us today.
Hey, happy to do this. What a blast. Such a fun conversation.
Awesome. We'll talk soon. I'm sure. I feel like I'll see you around.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Be well.